All right, y'all. What's up? What's up? What's up? Welcome to the God Squad. Welcome back to the God Squad. Oh my goodness. It has been another week of chaos. Is that what we could call it, Dylan?
Yeah, that's a pretty apt word for Trump 2.0.
It has been another week of chaos, but we are back to help you with another dose of faith, politics, and hopefully at least a little bit of sanity. Just a little bit. We might be able to eke out a little bit of sanity on a Thursday night. So, welcome back to the God Squad. Thank you for tuning in again. Look, like, share, tag, subscribe, all them things like that right there. I'm back, December Rose, your blackest friend, along with Dylan Ever Cruz. Say hello to the people.
Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us again. And a little sanity is good because it's hard to come by right now with the stuff that we're dealing with in these United States.
Woo, Beth says she really needs us tonight. What's up, Joanne? Sister. She said, who you telling? Girl. That's all I'm saying is I'm like, girl, child. That's all I'm saying. It's wild out here in these streets. So what WTF, what's going on in the news this week, Dylan David Cruz? What's going on in the news besides every damn thing? What's going on?
Well, we had a horrific tragedy that happened in Washington, D.C. With the collision of a Black Hawk helicopter and a passenger jet that was approaching to land. And Congressman Andy Ogles from Tennessee went on Fox News and said, was it DEI that caused this? Now, for those of you who don't know, Andy Ogles, Republican congressman from Tennessee, is a DEI hire, as in did not earn it, because his resume has more padding than a football locker room.
Lord.
And he's been, in January of 2025, has been recommended to be under full investigation by the House Ethics Committee for campaign violence, campaign finance violations. And this clown goes on national TV talking about DEI. Well, I went and looked up, some information about Reagan International Airport, stupidest name ever for an airport, because Reagan was a white supremacist. And here's what I learned. That airport has long been considered a safety concern due to its location, its geographical location along the river, the amount of flights, both commercial and military, that are already flying over that very constricted airspace, the presence of two other major international airports, and the trickiness of landing on those runways at Reagan International because of its position by the river. A pilot with 20,000 hours of flight time, who was also a former colonel in the Air Force, said you do not want to have a person being their first flight to try to land there. It's hard. So, and they added more flights last year to the schedule over the outcry from other people, including Senator Kaine. And it said, one article I read today said DCA is currently at capacity and at risk of being seriously overburdened should there be changes to the slot and perimeter rules. Moreover, any changes to the slot and perimeter rules threaten to undermine access of regional airports and their communities to the DC area, as well as increased delays, traffic congestion, noise, and safety concerns. Not only that, but there's been, for a while now, a shortage of air traffic controllers. So you tell me, what's more likely? A person with a disability or a person of color or an LGBTQ person got hired and therefore fucked up because, those kind of people aren't as good as white, straight, able-bodied people? Or a complicated set of factors that includes the busiest runway in America, too much traffic, a black helicopter at night, an airplane coming in at a speed making it safe to land and not having the ability to see a black helicopter at night, which ain't supposed to be seen at night. That's why it's black. And then Donald Trump picked up on the DEI nonsense too.
Yes. He literally, and then when he was pressed on it, he was like, well, we don't know the call. If you don't know what happened, why are you attributing it to DEI? Why is that even in your mouth? Because everything, they want to make everything, they want to put everything, they got these little code words, these little dog whistles,
bullshit.
Yes. And anything, it was like when critical race theory or woke, anything they could throw in that bucket to further make it sound as bad or be as bad as it can. They'll throw everything they can in the DEI bucket, whatever it is. It don't matter what it is. It don't matter what the topic is, what the situation, just throw it on over there in the DEI. It must be because of DEI. Lord, it must be because somebody brown got hired. It must be because a woman got hired. It must be because somebody who was older, they should have been retired, or somebody who was disabled got hired. I don't get it. And the probability of that being a factor is so far. If you just look at statistically, pilots and stuff, the probability of that being an issue is way, way out.
Yeah. It's just performative pandering with these
my next few checks that both pilots were probably white men. I don't know if they are, but that would be a good bet. You know what I'm saying? But that's not even the issue. Plane crashes are rare occurrences. And when they do occur, they need to be looked into and seen why they happen. What is not going to be the issue is DEI. I could promise you that. And then he brought up some kind of policy or something, and he got pressed. And you know how he do when he gets pressed on something that he can't answer for, he'll just resort to insults. But he got pressed, and they said, well, this policy that you're referring to, it was something that he was referred to without knowledge, of course, like he does a lot of the times without knowledge. This policy that you're referring to been in place. It's on the website. It's been on the website. And we know how long it's been in place, but it's been on the website since 2013. Why didn't you change it under your administration? And he was like, blah, 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 rambled on. Then the guy kept saying, like, you need to be quiet or shut up or something. He results to insults whenever you can't answer a question. It's always you're nasty or you're rude or that's, saying something crazy. And I was just listening at that press conference and I was thinking, I couldn't listen to it any longer because you stepped to that mic as the president of the United States. And the first thing you need to offer, Becky Payne nailed it. The issue is people died and lack of compassion is a problem. Amen. The first thing you need to offer is a statement of condolence and compassion to the 60 plus families and athletes that were lost. I think they believe it's a total loss. So this is now a recovery mission that were lost in this accident. And you offered none of that. Where's the presidential presentation to step to that mic and say there has been a tragedy? You step to that mic and talk about DEI.
Yeah. Pete Buttigieg tweeted something. I mean, he just excoriated him on social media. I wish I had a copy of it. And if you can't be compassionate and lead in that moment, and oh, by the way, didn't you just fire a bunch of people from the FAA and whatnot? Then take ownership of it. And that's the kind of chaos that his political shenanigans and Project 2025 chicanery is causing. Now, I'm not saying that this week that the accident wouldn't have happened with what Trump did this week with the executive orders and all that stuff, but all that stuff certainly didn't fucking help. Hasn't helped.
No. And the FFA, from what I read, the FAA chief or whoever was actually got pushed out of that job by Elon or got pressured out of it.
Yeah.
Or something.
Because he criticized Elon Musk.
Right.
And so he resigned on January 20th.
There you go. And Buttigieg tweeted earlier, despicable. As families grieve, Trump should be leading, not lying. We put safety first. drove down close calls, grew air traffic control, and had zero commercial airline crash fatalities out of millions of flights on our watch. That's what Buttigieg wrote. Zero.
Yeah, that's the one.
Zero.
There
He
you
also
go.
tried to throw Obama in there. And I'm trying to figure out how in the world are you throwing in a president who ain't been in office for what, 9 years into a conversation about a flight crash that happened today? I swear, if they could bring up, they'll go all the way back to Clinton if they can. Just whoever, as long as it ain't Trump's fault. Now,
Oh,
the thing is, what's so crazy is it's no one's fault. I mean, it's not Trump's fault. It's not Biden's fault. It's definitely in the hell not Obama's fault. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't get, but throw it on DEI, throw it on Biden, throw it. No, homie, this happened under y'all watch.
yeah.
Y'all watch. And whatever issues there are need to be addressed. And how about you address the issues, which has nothing to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion. I can guarantee you that much.
Yeah.
Hey, Sherry Risco. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name right. She said, hey, Decemberose. Hey, boo. What's up, cousin? Inez Gentry, that's my cousin, y'all. And what's up, Becky? Becky said he seems to forget he was president after Obama. They all seem to forget. Is it just me, or do they act like the first presidency of Donald Trump is like the lost articles of, you know what I'm saying, in a temple of the lost ark or something? They all seem to forget that he was president after Obama. I don't understand it. It's wild.
Well, I wonder if Andy Ogles brought it up first because of the House ethics complaints that are against him because he violated campaign finance rules. And I wonder why he's still in Congress when he did the exact same thing that George Santos did about lying about his resume and puffing it up like he was all that in a bag of chips when he didn't have near the qualifications and experience that he said he did. Maybe that's why Mr. Andy Ogles is focused on DEI, because he wants to deflect from his own political problems. But about 4 hours ago, the new FCC chief, with the flimsiest excuse in the history of flimsy, is trying to cut funding for NPR and PBS. And his excuse is because he thinks that they're borderline running commercials on their airwaves, and they're not supposed to do that. Now, that's one of those solutions looking for a problem kind of things, as you described something a few weeks ago. But what's really behind that? If they can control the media, they can control the media, but they can't control PBS and NPR. And people that listen to NPR and watch PBS are probably not very likely to vote for somebody like Donald Trump.
Probably not. And he talked about cutting them last term, and it was very his last term, and it was very unpopular, and he backed down from it. But who knows? He might try to do it this time. And speaking of cutting things and being unpopular, how about the crap show this week of Trump putting a freeze, I say that in air quotes, on all federal funding and loans? Oh my goodness. That lasted what, 48 hours maybe?
Yeah, and it was like somebody threw a wrench into the giant machine that should not have a wrench in it, because it went to a screeching damn halt, and everybody was running around trying to figure out what the actual fuck do we do now.
Veterans could not access their programs. People could not log into the Medicaid system. People could not make payroll with Head Start. All kind of things. All kind of things. It's almost like they're just pulling levers and pushing buttons just to see what's gonna happen. You know how a kid sees them and they're just like, "Ooh, what does that do? Ooh, what does that do? What if I turn that off? What if I flip this switch?" It's like, what are you doing? What are you even doing? You know what I'm saying? It's crazy. It's crazy. And the backlash from that, then I'm not glad it happened, because it was complete and utter chaos for a hot second there. But I'm glad that it woke, not that we weren't awake, but it jolted the Democrats into like overdrive, right? And it also impacted a lot of red states. What people don't understand is when we think about entitlements and things like that, people have a preconceived notion of who's at the receiving end of that. And normally they default, especially MAGA folks, to brown and black people. But the truth of the matter is the recipient, the greatest recipient of any entitlements in all of this country is white people. Because just because of statistics, just because of numbers. It doesn't have to do with culture. It doesn't have to do with any other thing. Just because there's more white people than anybody else. For now, that's what they're worried about. For now.
Yeah, they're just trying.
For now. And so just because of sheer numbers, statistically, what's up, Danye? There's more people, there's more white people that use entitlements than anyone else. It doesn't have anything to do with anything else but numbers, okay? And so when they think of cutting stuff off, they have a brown or black person in their mind. I'm just gonna tell you, they got a welfare queen, they got a black person, they got a brown person, they got a Mexican, they got somebody in their mind that's brown or black, I promise you. But when those things get cut off, you start to find out, no, homie, that's y'all. That's y'all. And MAGA folks, the majority of MAGA folks are at and below the poverty line. These are poor people who have found their champion in Donald Trump, and they have cut off their nose to spite their face.
Yeah, and there's more benefits like that go to red states than blue states.
Yes.
And blue states often receive less federal funding and end up giving federal funding to those red states.
That's right. That's right. And listen, the thing is, it lasted for all of maybe 48 hours. So the press secretary, okay, and listen. Sherry said, I agree with you, and I'm white. Honey, look, you can't, the numbers ain't gonna lie. The numbers don't lie.
There's just more white people than there are.
What is that? There's just more white people. Folks. So by the virtue of just the numbers, there's more white people on benefits, Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, Section 8, SNAP, TANF, all of it. Any entitlements, HUD, whatever it is. But it lasted all of 40 hours. And this poor press secretary, I don't know if she's gonna last, to be honest. We're gonna see how many Scaramucci's we're gonna see, or how many Spicer she lasts, right? Because she comes out and she says that it's not affecting all these things, It's not gonna affect this, it's not gonna affect that. Then she comes out, I guess the next day or whatever, and she's like, well, we're rescinding not the order to pause, but we're the memo or something. She tried to be cute with it. She tried to be cute. And yes, Judy said with a huge cross on her body. Girl, the cross.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Do you see me wearing a freaking electric chair? Why do people wear crosses? It was an instrument of state-sponsored torture. But she's pandering and should go read Matthew 6.
Coming out there
about
telling
ostentatious
lies.
Displays of righteousness and whatnot.
Coming out there with that big old cross on their neck telling lies. Okay, they wear the crosses, but they don't follow Christ. That's what it is. It is. So she come out there talking about the memo being rescinded, but not the order. Mistake. Let me tell you why that was a mistake. Because the Democrats had sued the administration about this block on these federal funds, because what you got to understand is Congress has control of the purse.
Right.
And the president,
illegal impoundment.
There you go. Illegal impoundment. So they sued, a judge issued an injunction. It comes up for a hearing. You know what I'm saying? It comes up for a hearing. And the lawyers say, well, there's no need for the hearing because the administration have rescinded the order. And then the judge says, well, the problem is the press secretary has just tweeted or X'd or whatever it is. She tried to be cute. And then it cost the administration their first loss. This is their first loss. The press secretary has stated that the order has not been rescinded. The memo had been rescinded, but not the order. So I'm going to go ahead and give the injunction, federal injunction on this, a restraining order, basically, on the government. And so you cannot go forward with this order. And look, Becky says the first thing she said was, I will only be telling the truth when I'm standing up here. Okay.
Yeah. She had more spin than the spin cycle. I'm telling you, she got tied up in knots trying to say that stuff because it was all what we call where I come from bullshit.
Down that bullshit.
I had, some people you're going to have to stand on the desk because it's getting higher and deeper in here.
Okay, she was on
But
that
she got
bullshit.
that bright shiny cross though, so we all know who's that she's on the right side of God or something. I'm
Yeah.
surprised that cross didn't start burning her skin.
Child, I'm surprised it didn't spontaneously combust right up in on her. It just starts smoking up there behind that podium. Okay. Anyhow, there's a lot going on. Did you see the confirmation hearings? I couldn't watch. I watched for just a few minutes. But I couldn't watch. Yeah, it's been wild, Doug. Yeah, it's been wild in these political streets. I couldn't watch. I was watching this a little bit of RFK
Oh, I
Jr.
know.
Oh my
No, I
gosh.
couldn't.
For the first thing, his voice rakes my nerves. And for the second thing, I can't stand how they gaslight. The Republicans gaslight. I just cannot tolerate it. How they try to act like these people haven't done what they've done and said what they said, and they get up there and with all these flowery words. And this fool was talking about I support vaccines, knowing good and damn well that he has campaigned against vaccines all this time. He has a website where he's selling onesies, which Bernie Sanders called him out on, which says no vax, no fear, some other stuff, that some other BS. And then he's up there, I support vaccines. I support. They just say anything. And so I've had a hard time watching the confirmation hearings. I can't do it. What about you?
I watched some clips of Russ Vought's confirmation hearing where he just lied and prevaricated and then sat there like the banality of evil that he is. I've read some stuff, but I can't sit through it because it makes my blood boil to be gaslit.
Yes, and that's what they're doing.
And I don't need to be that angry all the time. There's enough going on to be angry about that. I don't need to subject myself to it. But what I don't get is that there aren't enough Republicans to stand up and do their constitutional duty and say we're going to protect and defend the Constitution. And you can't do that with somebody like Russell Vogt, who has made it his life's mission to dismantle the Constitution, or Pete Hegseth, who is an alcoholic, woman abusing Christian nationalist, who, guess what, doesn't like the Constitution. So and that was the first ever 50-50 tie that had to be broke by the vice president.
And that's saying something.
And now,
especially in this climate.
And now the entire world is in a FAFO moment because the world's largest, most expensive military on earth is run by that fool.
Yeah. And the world is also in a FAFO moment. I actually have a segment on that later. Because of the threats that Trump is making, the European nations are like gathering themselves together to see what they need to do to defend themselves against the United States. First time in history, something like that has happened. The Canadian leader, I can't remember her name at the moment, they had a press conference the other day talking about, well, we're in discussion with our European partners about how to handle this. France is talking about sending troops to Greenland, to defend them against a possible invasion from the United States.
Yeah, Denmark is increasing their military spending by $2 billion. You ever looked at Denmark on a map? There are counties in Texas bigger than Denmark, but they're going to increase their military budget by $2 billion because of the stupid shit that Trump has been saying.
And it absolutely is the political Jerry Springer show every day. Every day.
That's
right.
Nailed it, Danya.
Nailed it. It is. But now, look, my friends, it is that special time of day on Thursday in the year of our Lord 2025, where we get the special treat of hearing about the fundamentalists fuckwit of the week from our very own Dylan Neighbor Cruz, the tattooed theologian. So I just want to know who you got for us this week. What's really going on in the world, and what clown you want to tell us about this week. Who's on that bullshit? Who's on that bullshit?
All right. Well, this week, the Fundamentalist Fuckwittery is brought to you by Christian nationalist pastor Rob McCoy. Now, you may remember a few weeks ago that Charlie Kirk found himself being the spotlight on this particular segment. And the reason why that is germane is because Rob McCoy is or was Charlie Kirk's pastor. And so Charlie Kirk probably got a lot of his Christian nationalist nonsense from listening to this guy. And for those of you who are going to be listening on the podcast and can't see my handy dandy little graphic up here, Rob McCoy is wearing a t-shirt in the pulpit while preaching a sermon that says MAGA Donalds, that has like a McDonald's M. And then on one sleeve, it has MAGA. And on the other sleeve, it has like an American flag, but not in red, white, and blue. So this guy is the senior pastor at Calvary Chapel. And he has a page on Charlie Kirk's website, Turning Point USA, where it gives a little brief bio. And at the bottom of that page is a picture of Candace Owens. And Candace Owens is an anti-Semitic shill for white supremacy. And the person who did the school shooting, I think in Tennessee last week, credited her for inspiring him to commit violence against the Jews because she's such brazenly anti-Semitic and hateful. And she does it for money. So let's see that video clip, December, and then I'll break down some more stuff about Pastor.
As pastors are stating things that because Trump is not completely pro-life, they're not going to vote for either candidate, which is just so bizarre to me. And we're going to cover that today because we're dealing with doctrine. And we're watching the confusion throughout Christendom. And many would see me wearing this and say that I'm it's an idol for me. I love my country. I believe our country is great, and I want it to be great again. Yeah. Again, Gnosticism was a first century heresy, which we're facing today in the churches across America and the world. This idea that we can't soil ourselves with earthly government because it's tainted. We somehow rise above that by positions we take that seem to be more morally superior. I can't vote for a man who's been 3 times married and twice divorced. And look at how special you are. There are none righteous, no, not one. Like, I can't vote for him. His I want to say tweets, but his exes are just triple X's. They're just bad. We're not voting for a pastor in chief. We're voting for a commander in chief. You're not voting. It's not a Valentine, right? You're voting for a bodyguard of Western civilization. And this is how we approach it. Where do you stand in the positions they hold?
Okay, my guy. First of all, yes, idolatry. You are committing the sin of idolatry right there in the pulpit by wearing a MAGA shirt and misappropriating a trademarked corporate symbol. But it's not, and you notice that he just kind of made a joke about Trump's tweets and his divorces. Hey, man, I've been divorced. That don't make me a bad person. Donald Trump incited an insurrection. Donald Trump is an adjudicated rapist. Donald Trump has been credibly accused by 25 plus women of sexual assault. Donald Trump has been credibly accused of raping a 13-year-old. And on and on and on. And to just try to whitewash that shit because you're a Christian nationalist, which is, again, idolatry, so that he can be your means to the end, shows that you're not on the path of Jesus, not even a little bit. And I watched more of that sermon and I read more about Mr. McCoy. And what I don't get is, A, he ostensibly has a history degree, so that's going to make some of the next stuff that I say real strange, at least to me, who also has a history degree. And B, his seminary education was at an Anabaptist seminary, a Mennonite Brethren seminary. Anabaptists are anti-violence. They are anti-Christian nationalism. And yet here we are. Now, he's either super misinformed, which would be weird because he, again, has a history degree. But he said this in the sermon that I watched more of than I just made y'all watch. You're welcome. He claimed that all 13 colonies in their original state constitutions had some religious test swearing allegiance to Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. That is incorrect. 9 out of 13 did, but that's not all 13. And that doesn't matter because those documents are no longer valid because of the United States Constitution, which enshrined the separation of church and state.
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely immaterial that those 9 out of 13 had that in there. He claimed that the Constitutional Convention broke for 3 days of fasting and prayer, and that suddenly after this fasting and prayer, they came up with the bicameral legislature and the 3/5 clause. And he kind of extolled the virtues of the 3/5 clause because they couldn't figure out slavery. My guy, the 3/5 clause not only made people like my friend December subhuman, it inordinately shifted the balance of power to the slavocracy states in the American South. And 12 U.S. presidents were enslavers. 8 enslaved people while being president.
Mm-hmm.
And the United States southern states had a tenacious grip on power because of that imbalance of counting the enslaved as 3/5 of a human being.
Mm-hmm.
It shifted the congressional balance in their favor until the Civil War. Mr. McCoy, Pastor McCoy, spread the big lie. He was a huge big lie proponent. And he said things like this, falsely claiming that Trump was ripped off in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Georgia, Nevada, Arizona, and described what happened in those states as unscrupulous and evil. What happened in those states is that people fucking voted and your guy lost. There's nothing unscrupulous or evil about that. What's evil is spreading a big lie because your guy lost because you want to establish a dominionist nation over a lot of people who don't believe like you do.
And it's probably one of the ones that prophesied Trump would win. So the only way that you could justify your prophecy being wrong is he did win, but he was stolen.
Yeah. He claimed, now, this is so stupid that I can't even hardly read it out loud. He claims that the disciples of Jesus are people that understand and the public understand the public square, that the scriptures speak on capitalism and immigration and transportation and all the issues we deal with government. Government is not man's idea, it's God's idea. My dude, capitalism is not in the Bible. But there's a lot of stuff that looks anti-capitalist in the Bible. And it doesn't matter if it's the Hebrew Bible or the New Testament. There's a lot of stuff that looks anti-capitalist in the scriptures. Because the hoarding of wealth is what capitalism is all about. It's literally the love of money. And what does 1 Timothy chapter 6 say about the love of money? It's the root of all evil, and Christians should be ecstatic to have housing, clothing, and food. And that's it. So, and yeah, it talks about immigration, I guess, anachronistically, but what it says is welcome the stranger a bunch of times. And transportation? What? That's probably some kind of kowtow to the fossil fuel industry, which, newsflash, there were no internal combustion engines or fossil fuels being used in the ancient Near East when the Bible texts were written. So for all of those reasons, and so probably many, many more, because, I can only dig so deep on these clowns, Pastor Rob McCoy is this week's representative of fundamentalist fuckwittery, and I would remind Pastor McCoy that idolatry is a sin. And if you make the nation state an idol, if you make the flag an idol, the Bible an idol, or your golden calf, spray tanned, lift wearing, bald, Adderall snorting president an idol, it's idolatry. And you might want to work on that, man. You might just want to work on that a little bit.
Just a little bit. And one thing I noticed,
Jesus a bad name.
Is giving Jesus a bad rep, for real. And here's the thing about it. In all that he talked about, what did you hear about Jesus?
Yeah.
Did you hear anything about Jesus? I didn't.
I heard about doctrine and that Paul wrote 1 Timothy, which he didn't. But he's a fundamentalist and inerrantist. So if it says Paul wrote it, then it must be true. Well, that's not what biblical scholarship says.
What gets me, and thank you for that, Dylan. Thank you for trucking down the fundamentalist fuckwit of the week, so we don't have to do it. I do not envy you for your research. I do appreciate you, though. I do not envy you, but I do have the utmost appreciation for you. What gets me about these preachers is he gets up in the pulpit with a MAGA shirt on in a congregation where it's highly unlikely. I don't care even if you're in the deepest South. It's highly unlikely that every single solitary person in your church is voting for Trump.
Right.
I don't care if you're in the middle of the reddest state, in the middle of the reddest county, in the middle of the reddest community, in the reddest church. It's highly unlikely that every single person in your church is going to vote for one candidate or the other. There's at least one person in there who ain't on that bullshit.
Promise.
And so when you get in the pulpit, your message should be for everyone in your church and beyond. And what gets me about these preachers is getting in that pulpit with a MAGA t-shirt on, talking about we're not electing a president. And here's something that he said that's important. We're electing someone that's going to defend Western values. Motherfucker, Western values is not the scriptures.
Right. And that's a code word for white supremacy. You hear people like that saying Western civilization, and then you go to some white supremacist websites and you will see Western civ and all that stuff. It's a code word for white supremacy.
Right. And Danye said, not me. I go to Pastor Hudgens Church. Very good. That's an awesome ministry over there. So you're in a good place. Sherry Risco said, I go to Pastor Hudgens. Sorry. That's an awesome ministry. You're in a good place. Those are good people. I love them. Listen, these people get up here and thank God there are some good, don't get me wrong, there are some good Bible teaching, Bible living, Bible walking, Bible preaching churches. They walk it like they talk it and live for Christ, and they love for Christ, and they accept people and handle people the way Christ accepted and handled people. But these folks give those folks a bad name and a bad rep. He spent all that time talking about a presidential candidate. What about the Lord of Lords and the King of Kings? Because he ain't voting for Donald Trump. He ain't voting at all. He said, my kingdom is not down here. This ain't for me. And my people, these are my people. This ain't my thing. His most as political as Jesus ever got was render unto Caesar what is Caesar's when it's time to pay taxes. He wouldn't be involved with none of this bullshit that these people are on. And they got his name in it and all over it because he's their mascot. Donald Trump got fans of Christ, not followers of Christ, because followers of Christ see right through all that. Followers of Christ don't believe in a campaign of cruelty. Followers of Christ don't believe in discrimination and hateful rhetoric and teasing from the biggest podium they call the bully pulpit in the whole country. Followers of Christ can't follow that. So he got a lot of fans, is what he got. A lot of fans of Christ. And when Christ is your mascot and not your master, you're going to have a lot of fans. But the followers see you for what you are and who you are.
Yeah. It boggles my mind that man went to an Anabaptist seminary and came out a Christian nationalist. It really does. It boggles my mind that's the route that he took. But and I've said it a dozen times or more, the ends justify the means to these folks.
Mm-hmm.
But the blatant lying and gaslighting is just so exhausting.
It's so exhausting. It's so exhausting. Danya says she believes that God is using Trump to unfold. I do. Here's something that I will concur with that. I'm not sure where you are with it, but this is where I am with that. I do believe that the church is being exposed. And I mean, white nationalist Christianity, I believe Trump is exposing all these folks. Like old girl walked out with that big old cross around her neck, telling lies, going and coming 90 days, not up and down, east, north, you know what I'm saying? Southwest, just lying, coming out there with that cross. Yeah. I do believe that they're being exposed, that Donald Trump is exposing all of them.
The word apocalypse doesn't mean end of the world. It actually means unveiling.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, we are in an apocalyptic time where, as December just said, the church is being exposed. Now, I went to a wonderful church on Sunday, and I have been lacking in a church home, spiritual community, and all of that. And the preacher took me to church. I was crying in the pew because I felt like, oh my goodness, I think I found my spot.
Mm.
And what did they talk about? What's going on in the world right now? How do we as a church meet the needs of the people who are being harmed by this administration? How do we show up and love for one another?
Mm.
How do we house the unhoused? How do we care for the marginalized?
Mm. Like the message of Christ.
And that preacher was a lesbian woman that I went to seminary with. Oh my God, a woman in a pulpit who is gay. Yes, yes. Because God calls who God calls. And it ain't up to you. And dangly bits and being straight ain't part of the gig.
Not dangly bits. I promise you, God ain't called or anointed anybody based on their bits.
It's not a prerequisite. Sorry. Sorry. Junia the Apostle has entered the chat.
Okay. And we thank God for that. It's a distraction anyways. There's more women in the earth than men. So what sense would it make for God to disqualify over half the population of the planet based on their genitalia? It doesn't make any sense. And the argument about it is nothing but a distraction from the devil. Right. Because if he can convince you that over half the population on the planet should not speak about Jesus, teach about Jesus, preach about Jesus, lead people to Jesus, then he's winning. He's winning.
And we wouldn't know about Jesus if it hadn't been for the who? The women in every gospel.
They're the first evangelists.
They were the first evangelists. Now, each gospel has a different number of women, but it was the women. And again, Junia the Apostle has entered the chat because Junia the Apostle was a woman that Paul named by name in the book of Romans.
Right. And then they tried to write her out of the scriptures.
Oh yeah.
Theologian, tell the people how they tried to write her out of the scriptures.
They tried to make Junia a man's name. Well, that ain't how it works. And they point to 1 Corinthians 14 and the interpolation that's in there in verses 34, 35, where if you take those verses out, the letter makes a lot more sense. But some scribe said, I don't like girls, so here I got to throw this in there in a later version of that. So, and they definitely forget about Galatians 3. No male or female, etc.
Listen, Tabby said, I joined the Episcopal Church not long ago, and I was so proud to be associated with them after Bishop Buddy's sermon. Yes. She's
Yeah.
amazing. And her books
Yeah.
are selling out. I love that for her. What the devil meant
Oh,
for
yeah, that's
evil,
awesome.
God it turned it
That's
for her
awesome.
good. They have great inclusivity and focus on Jesus. Yes, yes. Well, listen, we love you too, Sherry. Tabby said that's the truth. Listen, it's that time. It's that time. I got a little remix on TMF, which I usually do this motherfucker, but I got some little something extra special that I want to do instead of well, it's a spinoff from this motherfucker, and it is FAFO, which y'all know what that means. And y'all know, listen, let me give this disclosure once more for those who are new to the show. This is not church. Okay?
Right.
This is not church. This ain't no doggone Bible study. Although we study the Bible and we teach and talk about the Bible, we even preach around here, okay? But this ain't no church. So if you're offended by strong language, this is not the podcast or the show for you to be watching. Go on and get the hell on. Keep scrolling, turn it off, turn the channel, flip a switch, do whatever you feel like you need to do. But if you're offended by strong language, keep it moving. Kick rocks. But for all the rest of y'all, this is the first episode of Fuck Around and Find Out season 1. Okay, so I've been going around pulling out some things of folks who voted for Donald Trump are finding out real early on, because we ain't even wrapped up week 2. Are we even 2 weeks in? We're like 9 days.
Yeah.
We're not even 2 weeks in to this administration, and there's some buyer's remorse or voter's remorse already. So we're just gonna do Fuck Around and Find Out season 1, episode 1 today. This person, and the name tickles me pink, which is hard to do because I'm a dark-skinned girl. So I am extremely tickled if I'm pink about it, okay? Militant Negro. Listen, Militant Negro _5. He said, a week and now my Medicaid portal is shut down in my state. I voted for him too, but Jesus Christ. You call on the Lord, Militant Negro. Call on the Lord, okay? Yes, the Medicaid portal was shut down yesterday for a time after Donald Trump ordered a freeze on all federal funding and loans because, hello, that's a federal program. You ain't know that? But this your guy. You voted for him. Okay. My parents, this is from Ash. My parents are conservative. Now, she's talking about her parents. This is not her. She might not even voted for Trump. Her parents. My parents are conservative and own a business whose sole purpose is writing federal grants. Their entire income is now completely gone because of Trump. The leopards are having an absolute feast. Fuck around and find out. Okay, moving on. This person says, what the hell? While I agreed we need to cut down on federal spending, this will immediately harm food banks, yes, suicide hotlines, farms, and dozens of other things that are essential to this country. There's really no good way to defend this decision. Even if you say we should cut back on government funding, cutting things cold turkey like this to everything is ridiculous. Okay, for real? Okay. All right. This Bush senior conservative says, I am the facility director for a collection of churches, currently have about $1 million in projects between all the churches through federal grants. We can't pay these bills if the money doesn't come in. We were offered this money by the federal government for various safety upgrades and maintenance. Most of the grants are reimbursement loans. Parishioners are already texting and calling scared. You don't feel good. You don't feel good. Okay, I understand. Because it's time for you to fuck around and find out. I don't feel good either if I was you. This is the governor of Louisiana, Jeff Landry.
Oh, that guy.
That motherfucker. Okay. He posted in response. I'm not going to read his whole post, but he says that legislative leaders are seeking clarity as to the depth of Trump's OMB order. While he wholeheartedly embraces cutting spending, he is concerned about, quote, jeopardizing the financial stability of Louisiana. Is it because perhaps Louisiana is one of them red states, one of them states that's milking off of all the other states, one of them states that's a taker state, one of them states that has a high per capita of folks that are receivers of entitlements, one of them states that has a high demographics of people living in poverty. Would it be because you got a lot of folks in your state that are on Medicaid? Would it be because you're on a lot of folks in your state who are on Medicare? A lot of homeless, a lot of people who need benefits from the state, maybe even a lot of veterans who have served our country with valor and honor, but cannot access their benefits? Yeah, it might be jeopardizing the stability of Louisiana. It just might, because it's time for you to fuck around and find out who you voted for and stand behind. And this is a really special one. And this is my last one. This is a really special one. John Basham. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. He's a Trumper. And he done put a whole plea out to the public in hopes that it will get to Donald Trump. And I'm going to read this word for word. They never think it's going to happen to them. I promise you, when these people vote for Trump and they're salivating over Mexicans getting deported, they're salivating over the rug getting snatched out from little brown, yellow, brown, black kids. They're salivating over so-called welfare queens getting denied benefits. They never think they're at the receiving end of these benefits. They can't even fathom it. John Basham says, "Attention, please help." And he's tagged the president and he's tagged Senator Ted Cruz. I don't know what he thinks Senator Ted Cruz is going to do. Ted Cruz bounced on y'all when y'all power went out during the winter storm. But anyway, he says, "My wife is a nurse and was recently hired by the VA. Our home is packed up. We have a new home." So in other words, they're getting ready to relocate, sold their old home, got a new home to relocate for this job opportunity. "We have a new home. We have spent thousands to move our family from Fort Worth to Waco. Following Trump's hiring freeze at the hiring freeze executive order, rather, the VA rescinded her job offer. Ooh, 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 ooh. My wife is in tears and inconsolable, and my family is devastated. It has been my wife's dream to work with needy disabled veterans. I'm a disabled vet. Now our family is lost with no clear path of what to do. Her job was to start in 2 weeks, right after we settled in. We are all, look at this in all caps because they think it matters. We are all huge Trump supporters, and I know this was an unintended consequence. Do you know that? Do you know that? Okay. I'm sure veterans, medical care professionals were not the target of this executive order. Are you sure? Are you sure about that? Please help me get this message to the White House so the president can fix this error. Veterans need not be affected because of out of control government spending elsewhere. Please help retweet this so real Donald Trump is made aware. That is your episode 1 of Fucking Around and Find Out, season 1, episode 1. Listen, to all the John Bashams in the world, or however you say his name, to all of y'all, this is your time. This is your season. This is your president. And these are your consequences for voting for a complete and total, utter clown.
Pathological lying clown. And as a disabled veteran, John Basham, I regret to inform you that Project 2025 wants to eviscerate our benefits. And Republicans talk about cutting government spending all the time that they can cut taxes for the wealthy. And where do you think those cuts come from? Not the almost $900 billion defense budget. From things like libraries and national parks and veterans benefits and WIC. You're pro-life, but you're going to take away milk from women who have baby children?
Mm-hmm. And about 40% of births are paid for through Medicaid.
And
in
we
this country.
tried to warn you.
Or Medicare, one of those.
Yeah.
That's a lot of births. That's a lot of babies for y'all pro-lifers. That's a lot of
My
babies.
daughter was born because on Medicaid.
Mine too.
I had a full-time job, but I couldn't afford to pay U.S. hospital prices even in 1994. So we were on Medicaid.
I had 2 preemies. My baby daughter was born at 2 pounds 6 ounces. Her bill when she came out of NICU, she was in NICU for a while, was I think it was $170 something thousand. Medicaid paid for that. Thank God for Medicaid.
Yeah.
Thank God for
exactly.
Medicaid that's paying the bills on a lot of those beautiful bundles of blessings that are in NICU tonight.
Right.
Thank God.
And
But they're
Becky
trying to
Payne
cut it.
says, has he not been listening to what they want to do to veterans? The overturning of DEI takes away any veterans hiring advantages. Exactly.
But
If I were to apply for a federal job right now, I would get bonus points because I'm a disabled veteran and I have a master's degree and all that. But the biggest point bump for the hiring process would be because I'm a disabled vet. And they want to take that away. And that's all under
they
diversity,
have taken it
equity,
away.
and inclusion. Yeah.
But they always think when they made DEI such a bad word that people don't understand what it means for them on the ground in their own life. They just see they hear DEI, and I promise you, they see a brown face. They hear DEI
or a gay person,
or a gay person, a trans person. They hear DEI, and I promise you, they see a black face. They never think. Someone posted something and I want to read it. It says, I don't think everyone knows what DEI includes. It includes your disabled neighbor that can only work 4 hours a day, the Down syndrome bagger at Kroger that greets you with a smile every time you come in, the autistic barista at Starbucks that always makes sure your drink is correct and can remember your daily order without a beat. It includes veterans. It includes your pregnant friend that would have to take FMLA for bed rest or be able to have accommodations for her job while she saves for her first baby. It's not just about ethnicity. It's about making sure everyone has an equal opportunity to work without being discriminated against. They don't get it, though.
They do not.
They don't get it. They do not get it. But they're about to fuck around and find out. Every day for the next 4 years. And look, Damien said white women, and that's the biggest thing. What people don't understand is affirmative action and the DEI policy. You know who the biggest recipient and beneficiary is for all those programs? Is white women. The numbers don't lie. White women are the biggest beneficiaries, have benefited the most from both affirmative action and all DEI programs. Not because necessarily they're so special. It's just the numbers. It's just the numbers. Becky Payne says you can be fired if you get pregnant. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can. And he's fired several people at the EEOC. They haven't shut completely down the EEOC, but they fired several people there. And also 17 inspectors general. Now, why would you come in the door? Firing
which was illegal.
Which was illegal. Firing 17 folks that are there to call out, root out, and deal with government corruption. And also handle whistleblowers. Why would you do that?
It's almost like they don't want any oversight so that they can just do what they want to do.
Just do what you want to do. Just one roughshod over the company, over the country, over the government without nobody watching. You come in the door. Can you imagine what they would have said if Biden or Obama came in straight through the door and fired 17 individuals that are in charge of watching over government corruption, watching over money going where it shouldn't go, watching over misappropriation of funds, resources of the government on behalf of the American people, handling the complaints of whistleblowers. And if one of them came in the door and just X'd out all against the law because it's supposed to go through Congress. Can you imagine? But it's okay. I guess it's all right if Donald Trump do it.
Yeah. Well, that's what he wants. He wants to rule by decree, just like his buddy, his favorite author of all time, Adolf Hitler.
Well, I hope we got some good news. I know we got some word though. What's the word on the
Well,
street? What you got for us
well,
today?
we got a little bit of good news. We talked a little bit about this last night on John's show. Because of the way things have been happening in the first 2 weeks, Christians are finally waking up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And a group of Quaker congregations has filed a lawsuit against the Department of Homeland Security over a policy change by Donald Trump designed to make it easier for ICE agents to locate and remove illegal immigrants from churches. Now,
Mm-hmm.
remember when they said that immigrants who came legally and all that stuff were fine? Well, they're arresting immigrants in churches who have valid work permits and who were asylum seekers, meaning that they had already come into the country, they've already gone through the process of
Mm-hmm.
seeking asylum, and they have a valid work permit. And Donald Trump is rounding those people up. And the Quakers are not having it. And there are other denominations that are not having it. And that's why this week's word on the street comes to you from the Barman Declaration of 1934. And for
Hmm.
folks who don't know what that is, if you go to the United Church of Christ website, there is a thing about the Barman Declaration. It was a call to resistance against the theological claims of the Nazi state. Almost immediately after Hitler's seizure of power in 1933, Protestant Christians faced pressure to Aryanize the church, expel Jewish Christians from the ordained ministry,
Hmm.
and adopt the Nazi Führer principle as organizing principle of church government. Gee, what does that sound a lot like to you? Christian nationalism in America, because the Nazi movement was in some measure Christian nationalist. They took over the German confessing churches and created the German Christian church, which is what the Barman Declaration was pushing back against. So I'm going to read a couple of the headings of the actual document from 1934. From these were Lutherans, evangelicals, and Catholics that came together despite their theological differences and said, "We reject the false doctrine as though the state over and beyond its special commission should and could become single and totalitarian order of human life, thus fulfilling the church's vocation as well. We reject the false doctrine as though the church over and above and beyond its special commission should and could appropriate the characteristics, the task, and the dignity of the state, thus itself becoming an organ of the state."
Hmm.
And so I just want to say right now, make it very plain, that Dylan Neighbor Cruz, the tattooed theologian, rejects any and all attempts to have the United States government co-opt Christianity or Christian nationalists to co-opt the United States government. And that leads me to Colossians 3:9 through 15. And I hope that the, what's her name? Levitt, Katrina Levitt, or the new press
The press
secretary.
secretary. Hmm.
Yeah. The first part's for you, my friend. Do not lie to one another, seeing that you have stripped off the old self with its practices and have clothed yourself with the new self, which is being renewed in knowledge according to the image of its creator. In other words, the creator don't lie. In that renewal, there is no longer Jew and Greek, circumcised and uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, enslaved and free, but Christ is all and in all. Therefore, as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience. Bear with one another, and if anyone has a complaint against another, forgive each other, just as his Lord has forgiven you, so you must also forgive. Above all, clothe yourselves with love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony, and let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in one body, and be thankful. Amen.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Listen, I hope y'all heard that. And I put it in the chat, Colossians 3, 9 through 15. And our friend over there, the press secretary, I hope she reads the word as much as she wear it on her neck. She probably don't. None of them do. And you can tell by what they choose to do and the actions that they take that they don't read that word. They're not in it. They don't read it. They don't care about it. Because if they did, they'd be walking it out and it would appear in their policies. You could tell what they really believe by the laws and the policies that they pass. Go ahead. What'd you say?
Yeah. By your fruit you'll be known. And that goes out to all the empathy is a sin people. Colossians 3:9-15 just absolutely annihilates that argument.
It's out the door. It's out the door. Well, listen, thank you for tuning in. Listen, you can catch us every Wednesday with John Fugger saying, "Tell Me Everything" on Progress Radio 127, 10 o'clock on Wednesdays. And we be right here Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with the God Squad live. And make sure you like, share, tag, subscribe, all that stuff, and give us a good rating on wherever you get your podcasts at too, so that we can get our numbers up. So tell somebody about the show. Join us on here. Thank you for joining on here tonight. Danya, it's my first time seeing you on here. Gary says, I'm with the Anglican Church of the Church with you all day. Thank you, Gary. Good to hear that. Gabby said, "Man, got to knock their Lord." You got that right. Becky said, "I am striving to forget, but it's hard when the actions of others hurt so many." That is true.
I hear you, Becky.
And you sometimes you just got to sit with it for a minute. But sometimes you got to release, you got to forgive for the freedom of your own heart. Amen. For your own heart to be free and not bound. Anyhow, thank y'all for listening. Thank you, Bev. Thank you, Judy. We love you back. Laugh anyway. I love the name. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in tonight, Damien, Danye, all of y'all, Beth, Judy, Becky, Ronique. Hey, Ronique, Sherry, Risco, all of y'all. I can't name all you all every time, but listen, I just want you to know I love you, and I know the Tattooed Theologian love you. Thank you for tuning in.
Oh, you betcha.
Share the broadcast and join us back here next week on the God Squad. Y'all be good.